guys, thank you so much for being here. So today I'm finally going to open up this camera, which is the Sony A7IV, and that's their newest hybrid full frame camera. So why don't we just go ahead and finish opening it, and then I'll talk about 5 of my reasons as to why I chose to buy this as my very first full frame camera. This is exciting. This is kind of like a late Christmas present. Let's just get straight to the body. In case you guys do care, all there is paperwork, the charger with the cable, 1 battery, a good little camera strap, which typically I would use this, but I actually bought a separate one for this camera. So we'll have to make a whole nother video about that because it's a really unique, cool camera strap. Okay, I'm just gonna move the box out of the way. Oh, snap. Ah, look at that. This thing is beautiful. This is a much chunkier, thicker boy than what I'm used to because I'm shooting on the A6600. It's super, super nice. It's actually pretty lightweight. That's without the battery. Even with the battery, that's a very good, you're not gonna get like tired out using this camera. I like that. So obviously this thing is nice. I mean, it's not cheap, so you expect it to be nice. But having never owned a full frame camera myself, like I mentioned, this thing is just premium. From the way it looks to how it feels, the buttons, I mean, the grip, everything about it is just super high quality. But we're not gonna do like a full in-depth review today because I haven't even used it. But obviously, before spending this kind of money, I did a ton of research and I really, knew what I was getting into. And so based off all the research that I did, I want to talk about those 5 reasons as to why I ended up buying this. My list is in no particular order whatsoever. The first one I'll talk about is the 33 megapixel sensor that's in here. So that's brand new for Sony. They've never had a camera with a 33 megapixel sensor. And I think it's like the perfect sweet spot because I really did want a hybrid camera. That's why I didn't buy the A7S III or any other of the newer full frame cameras that they've made because I wanted a true hybrid. And that 33 megapixels, it really allows you to take like amazing photos, not only because they're super high resolution and all that, at least specifically for me, I really like to crop my photos later when I'm editing in Lightroom. Lots of times I'll even like completely recompose it by cropping, and having that 33 megapixel sensor, it allows you to be able to do that while still maintaining a lot of information there, but also still having enough megapixels left to where later you could make it larger and it would still look good. And it's not so many megapixels to where it affects like the low light performance in video, because that can happen. If you get too high a resolution, then the megapixels are smaller and then they don't tend to do quite as good in like low light video. So for what I was looking for, which was a true hybrid camera, I just think that 33 megapixels was the perfect sweet spot. And reason number 2 is the autofocusing system. If you take photos or you do video, then you know how big of a deal or how important having a really good autofocusing system can like contribute to the user experience, because I can get the photo that I was trying to get in less shots, so then you spend less time like in editing going through all the ones that weren't any good. And then obviously you're gonna have way less video clips where you missed focus, where maybe the face wasn't perfectly in focus because it was hunting or something like that. You're gonna have a lot less of that with this autofocusing system because this is the exact same one that they put into the Sony A1, which is an over $6,000 camera. And the reason that this is even able to do that is because it has like a faster, more powerful processor than the A7 III used to have. And so the reliability and benefits of all that is just another one of the reasons why I went with this guy. I said at the beginning of this video that I didn't really like put these in any particular order whatsoever, but as we go, I'm realizing that I actually like subconsciously did put them in order in a way, because I think each one of these as we go, I value more than the one before, but I still value all these a lot. And so it's not like one is clearly ahead of the other. They're all super important. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and move on to number 3. So number 3 is the video specs in general. So just pretty much all the video capabilities of this is one of the reasons why I chose this camera compared to like the old A7 III, because not only does this shoot in 4K 24 frames per second, which is what I typically shoot in, but that is downsampled or oversampled from 7K, And so when you take a 7K image and turn it into a 4K image, it's gonna be a lot better than just a 4K image or something that's like sampled from a 6K image or something like that. So the 4K that you're getting out of this is actually even better than like the 4K on the A7 III. Then on top of that, in the past, every time I wanted to shoot in slow motion, like on my A6600, which I plan on keeping, but I would have to go down to 1080p and shoot at like 60 frames or 120 frames per second. You still have to go down to 1080p on this to shoot at 120 frames per second, but the 60 frames per second can be shot in 4K and it's oversampled as well. Now the only downside, at least for a lot of people, is the fact that the 60 frames per second in 4K is in crop mode, which for some people is a big deal, but for me it just honestly isn't, because I've got a bunch of Sony APS-C lenses already that are super ultra wide, and that's what most people are worried about. They'll put their like 16mm on here, but then with that 50% crop, it becomes a 21mm and it's just not as ultra wide as before. But for me, since I already have some ultra wide APS-C lenses, and even if you didn't have one, you can go out and get one, and it's cheaper typically than buying a full frame ultra wide lens anyways. And so if I put my 10-18 on here, even with the crop factor, it's the same like focal length as a 15mm lens, which is super, super wide. Plus in most cases, if you are trying to shoot slow motion, you don't want to be too wide unless you're real close, because you don't want to be far away from the movement, or else it just doesn't look as good. I mean, if you're gonna have movement in slow motion, you gotta be up close to it so you can really see it moving in slow motion. For one, it's not gonna affect you in most B-roll situations where you're trying to get slow motion, and if it does, just get an ultra wide APS-C lens and you'll be good. Not only is the 4K video in this sharper because it's oversampled from 7K, but you can also shoot in 10-bit 422 codecs on this, which basically is just gonna gather like even more information and have more range in colors. And so there's just less chance that you're gonna have that banding in the sky that you see. And there's just other drawbacks as well to not having as much dynamic range and not having as much like information and color range and all that. And so having that codecs just really improves the overall video quality as well, along with the oversampling. And if that's not enough, you also get tons of really good picture profiles. So obviously you're gonna get like the S-Log and HLG, but the one that I'm really looking forward to is the S-Cinetone, which is a picture profile that's like in some of the more expensive Sony video cameras, and it's basically supposed to be more cinematic looking and require a lot less like post-editing. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And another thing that really helps this be really good for video, along with everything we just talked about, is the stabilization, because not only does this have 5-axis image stabilization like we've seen in other Sony cameras, but you also get the active stabilization, which, like some of the other features, we've only seen in like the more expensive Sony cameras that cost more than this guy. And the overall color science is all the newer color science that Sony uses for those more expensive cameras as well, like the A1. Your skin tones and things like that are just gonna look better even straight out of camera with no picture profile. Now reason number 4 I could have thrown in with reason number 3, which is just like general video specs and capabilities, but I wanted to give it its own category because for me it was a big part in why I wanted this camera over like the older A7 III, and it's the just overall low light capabilities. From everything I've seen, people are saying that the low light capability on this is, lots of people are saying it's as good as the A7S III. But regardless, it's way better than what we had in the past. And part of that, or a big reason why, is because it has like a dual native ISO. Because if you don't know what ISO does, as you're using more, moving up in your ISO from like ISO 100, 200, 500, 1000. And so if you use too much of it, it starts to look grainy, and that's how you get like that grainy look in your low light footage. But when you have another ISO that kicks in, and for this one it kicks in at 3200, and all of a sudden it was starting to look more noisy, but then you get to 3200 and it looks really clean and sharp again and low noise. And to me that's just like huge, and that's probably why I had it 4th on my list or higher up on my list. Because it's just a big deal for me. Being able to shoot low light and have it look less noisy is a big deal. And it may not be more important or a bigger deal than those other things, but this list is about the things that I, really desired in my full frame camera. So that was really exciting when I first saw what this could do with the dual ISO. All right, guys, so we finally made it to reason number 5, and it's not that this one I saved it for last because it's necessarily better than everything else we talked about, but for me, it was just such a big deal. And what it is, it's just the overall improvements and upgrades that they made to the body of the camera. And I know what you're thinking, you're like, what is he talking about? You're just happy about some upgraded buttons and whatever. But no, I'll get into what they did. They did a lot to it. The viewfinder, for one, is significantly better than the one from the past. It's just way higher resolution, way sharper, and same with the screen. It's way higher resolution, it's a better image quality, and also like more color accurate. And so that right there is huge because for me at least, I use the viewfinder a lot. Lots of times when I'm composing my shots, I like to look in there, but it's just a nice experience when you have a good viewfinder. And then the screen is not only better, but it's fully articulating. Look at that. You can turn it around to yourself like that. You can do it like this if you're vlogging and you're holding it like that. You want to be able to see yourself. But then one little thing that you may not think is a big deal, but for me, like after having struggled so much with shots that are low to the ground, you go to do it and now I can just see my screen. Because typically I'm standing up and I have the camera down by the street, down by my feet, and I can't see the screen like I can with this. This is like amazing, honestly. I know it's a little thing, but for me it's huge because I would have to like lay on the ground and get dirty, or I can't take a shot like that because typically this is what you see. And if you're standing way up, your eyes can't see that. And so you can't really compose your shot very well. You're kind of guessing. So being able to just flip that out and just have it facing up at you, it's huge. And then on top of that, it's a touch screen. And before you could touch it for like focusing, but now you can actually like use it more as a touchscreen. You can actually go through the menu with it. You can zoom in like you would on a phone sort of with 2 fingers. And so just the fact that they upgraded those two and they upgraded them so well, that just makes it so much more enjoyable. But then there's several other upgrades to the body as well, like the fact that the exposure compensation dial, the fact that they made it a customizable dial now. And so you can control your ISO from it, you can control your aperture, you can even control like your white balance if you want to adjust the Kelvin. And so there's just so many things that you can do with this that it now makes it like a much more usable dial instead of it just kind of taking up space there for a lot of people. And it also has a little button in the middle on top that if you just click it, it'll lock. You also have the fact that they put the record button for video on top here. And on my Sony A6600, it was a tiny little red button that's on the back that you almost have to push with your nail because it's so little. And so even though it seems like a small change, again, it's a huge change that is just so much more enjoyable when you're using the camera to just have a button. And the last major change to the body is this dial that they put here. It's got your normal dial where you've got like aperture, priority mode, shutter priority manual. You got 3 different memory recalls. Instead of having like a video mode on that dial, you have it behind here. So there's a dial that's below this dial. On the front, you can control it with this little button. You can just rotate it and it switches between photography and video and then like slow and quick. But the reason that this little change in this dial is such a big deal is because say you're taking video, you're shooting 24 frames per second, you got your shutter at 1/50th, you have some kind of picture profile, then you want to switch over to take some pictures instead of being in video. Well, you switch over, but then you gotta like change all your settings. And so now you would just switch over to photo mode and you have all your settings that are saved for photo mode. So it just makes it so much faster and just like easier to be able to switch between the two, because sometimes I would be like taking video and I wouldn't even bother switching over to take the photo that I wanted to take because I'm like, it might not be that good of a photo, it's not worth changing all my settings. But now it'll be so quick, it's literally just changing it like that. And now I'm in my photo settings, I can take the picture real quick and switch right back. The fact that they did that also means that those 3 memory recall, basically 3 for each. You can just get things dialed in perfectly how you want so that everything is super quick. You're never wasting time. Now there's other upgrades to the body as well, but those are all the ones that are like a really big deal to me, that are gonna make a huge difference in how quick and efficient I can be, but also how much I enjoy using this camera. And if you enjoy using the camera, then you're gonna wanna use it more, which means you're gonna be more productive. By the way, if you're interested in any of the gear that I use, whether it's for like my Sony APS-C camera or for this guy, I'll put links in the description down below of this video. So that way all you have to do is click on one of those links and it'll take you straight to Amazon where you can buy it. And it's kind of there for convenience for you, but also I get a small percentage from Amazon at no cost to you. So I would really appreciate that, because even though it's not much, it does help out my channel. So even though those 5 categories were pretty much like the main reasons why I decided to get this full frame camera as my first, versus just like saving some money and getting the old A7IV, which is still a very good camera, but there's just so many features on this that weren't on that one. Pretty much every single thing I talked about is a new feature or new upgrade to this camera. And so it's a camera that I can also grow into, because there's more upgrades that I didn't talk about that I maybe aren't as excited for, because it may not be something that I plan on using right away. But it's like I said, something I can grow into. And as my skills get better, because I mean, most of us, we're still learning, and I mean, I'm still learning for sure. A lot of you guys are probably better than I am, but you know, as you grow, you can kind of like grow into this camera as well. So it's got everything that I want right now and more. And so it was just like the perfect choice for me. If you guys have any questions or comments about something that I talked about, or maybe it's about something that I didn't talk about, either way, just let me know in the comments down below, and I do my best to answer those as quickly as I can. And with that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for sticking around till the end and watching the whole video. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to hit the like button. It's like a super simple thing that you can do that really does help out my channel, and it does make a difference. I would appreciate that as well. And also subscribe if you're not already, because I do a lot of these kinds of videos, like gear reviews related to photography and making videos and that kind of stuff. So not just like camera body reviews, but I've done a lot of like APS-C lens reviews, and I'm gonna be doing them now for their full frame cameras. But I've also done like camera backpack reviews and drone related videos. So if you're interested in any of that, definitely subscribe. Now real quick before I say goodbye, I wanna start something new at the end of my videos, where if I have any kind of like new life updates, I want to share that with you guys. That way, for those of you who are interested, who are going to be sticking around, you can kind of like get to know me a little bit. I guess my first new life update for you guys is the fact that I'm having a baby girl. So that's pretty exciting. She's due in May, so right now it's January. We've got about 5 more months. But that's my huge news for right now, so I'm really excited. If you guys have any kids yourself, or maybe you have a baby girl and you just want to like leave me some advice, or you know, just talk about it, or leave any kind of comments down below, I'm definitely welcome to that. But with that being said, I just want to thank you guys again for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.